little bit of an experiment here this morning trying to make all of this work. So just bear with us for a minute. It's a work in progress.
Since 2019, Sci-Fi for Me has been bringing you news and opinion from all over the web. Science fiction, fantasy, and horror have been on our radar from the beginning. News, rumors, we bring you the latest with our team coverage. Streaming original content every week. Good Morning Multiverse, live on Sci-Fi for Me TV, delivering the multiverse since 2009.
All right. Everybody can sleep easier. You can rest. You can calm your nerves, ladies and gentlemen, because Demi Lovato is back to using she and her pronouns. I'm so happy. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jason Nutt. I'm the editor here at Sci-Fi for Me. And glad to have all of you here. We are broadcasting live to Odyssey, Facebook, and YouTube. And this show, of course, is available also in podcast form. The chat is open for those of you who are live. And if you're not with us live, you can still leave a comment. You can always send us an email, livefromthebunker at sci-fi4me.com. I do read every single email. I read all the comments, even the ones calling us out. We get those every now and again. All right, let me turn that off there for a second. Now, okay, so big heapum news. Now, I am going to circle back to the Demi Lovato thing here for a minute, but not yet. Let's start with bringing in our guest for the day. Culture Casino joins us. Welcome, sir.
Oh, hello, and thanks for having me today. I'm excited for this.
Yeah,
this might be one of the last appearances of the Beard.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, and Mazer says he was notified on time again. Look at that. What is YouTube doing? I call shenanigans. So, welcome, sir. Yes, the bearded one is with us. We're going to be talking about the big news that broke yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more to this.
Mm-hmm.
Than just the one piece. But first of all, what I want to do is I need to plug something for Saturday morning, and I think Culture, you're going to appreciate this. We've got an interview on Saturday with an indie creator on Good Morning Multiverse. We try to feature various different indie creators that are crowdfunding projects and whatnot. So on Saturday, we're going to be talking about Mother Trucker.
Wow, I love the name already.
Yeah, so that's coming up on that's coming up on Saturday, but I'm excited about that. That's going to be fun. So, big news. Batgirl has been canceled. It's gone. It's wiped clean from the slate. It was originally scheduled to be on HBO Max. And then, well, I guess it was originally going to be theatrical, wasn't it? And then they decided to go HBO Max. I might be remembering that wrong.
Well, no, I mean, at various points, this was going all kinds of places. So it's not, that's not, you're not misremembering at all. It's, but it's one of those weird things, right? DC has felt kind of directionless for a really long time. And to a larger extent, Warner Brothers had felt rather directionless.
Yeah.
Because from one week to another, they were schizophrenic. They couldn't make up their minds on what they wanted to do. But yeah, you're right. With this project, it was going to be one thing. It was going to be another thing. It was going to be broken up into things.
Yeah.
There we are.
And we have here the story. I think it first broke in the New York Post. And
yeah, I think you're right.
The headline is really interesting. Irredeemable Batgirl movie gets shelved by Warner Brothers despite $70 million price tag. Now, they've got a source telling them that even though we're all in the hey pornbot, good to see you there.
You got friends.
What happened there? All right, somebody needs to hit that. Where are my wrenches? Get that
I got it.
knocked out.
Oh no.
Oh wait, have I not given you a wrench?
Oh no, I have one. I went to go smash it, but somebody already beat me to it.
Okay,
so.
cool. All right. So anyway, so yeah, $70 million price tag. Some are saying even as much as $100 million. This thing was in post production. One of the directors is off getting married when this happens, and you're not coming back to a movie to finish, sadly.
Well, and for what most people don't understand is the one of the directors, they come as a team, right? They're not marrying each other. He's getting married, but they're both at the same wedding because I mean, obviously, who's going to be your best man and your co-director, right? But it's a really weird thing, and it hit like a ton of bricks yesterday. I don't think any of us were prepared for it, despite hearing some things in the background that this thing was looking like it was doomed. And there's a lot of things to take away from this, but yeah, we should definitely cover some of this article to give it some context.
So it says here, holy millions down the drain, Batman. They're being clever there because that's a Batman 66 reference for those of you who don't know. The DC Comics film Batgirl will be completely shelved by Warner Brothers, a top Hollywood source told The Post. That means it won't hit theaters or the streaming service HBO Max. Fans will not see it. Non-fans wouldn't have seen it anyway. The reportedly $70 million movie, source says the budget was actually more than $100 million, which was doing test screenings for audiences in anticipation of a late 2022 debut, would rank among the most expensive cinematic cast-offs ever. Those tests were said to be so poorly received by moviegoers that the studio decided to cut its losses and run for the sake of the brand's future. It is a DC disaster. Source says they think an unspeakable Batgirl is going to be irredeemable. I mean, you have unspeakable and irredeemable in the same sentence.
I mean, that's not exactly positive,
No, it's
positive statements. I look at that and I'm like, okay, but sometimes it's better just to cut your losses. And this represented a very different opportunity. And some of the articles got into it recently that in their coverage that they have an opportunity to write this down. This is a write down or write off. Yeah. The terminology you want to use is that's all accounting language that I don't use. In fact, I think you probably have the article, right?
Yeah, I've got I've got Hollywood Reporter and I think Variety both. Talked about this because of the change in ownership and the new legal entity, the new business entity that is Warner Brothers Discovery, as opposed to AT&T, Warner Media, whatever, that this is the place where, okay, we're changing our strategy. We're not going to be all streaming all the time. There's not going to be as much focus on HBO Max. Right. Zaslav wants to go big into theaters, and this is a reflection of that because this was an expense from AT&T. Yep. We can take the tax hit, the tax write-off, and take the loss because they're 43. They assumed a $43 billion debt when they merged and took over this thing.
Massive. Yeah. And look, they this is an opportunity, right? And this will be lost to them if they don't do it before the quarterly. Right. Yeah. And so their numbers,
because their reports, tomorrow, the 4th.
Yeah. So this was an opportunity to just kind of like push this back on AT&T in a way. Yeah. And mind you, I mean, there's a broader conversation here in that they need to change directions with their most marketable properties. And which is another reason, and this is something that nobody's talking about. And I was going to bring up in other places last night and again today, and I'm glad I'm here to do it. You don't have to look any further than the change in direction than them trying to divest themselves of the CW. So when Nexstar assumes control of the CW, which will get both Paramount Plus or Paramount Global, whatever the heck they're calling themselves today, but get Paramount and Warner out from underneath that trash fire, then it's the sky's the limit for them, because again, you're getting rid of things they need to get rid of. And this is in Zaslav's own words just a few months ago. They got to get rid of about $3 billion worth of, red.
Yeah.
That's his plan. This is part of that.
And that's actually in this Hollywood Reporter article here. It says, leadership has been looking to find $3 billion in cost savings after the merger. And, Variety is sitting there saying sources note that Batgirl was made under a different regime, like we talked about.
Yep.
And this is one of those things where we're not doing HBO Max anymore. There's not as much of an emphasis on it, which kind of goes back to an earlier thing that Zaslav was talking about, where he's sitting there saying, and this was very, very early on in the game, where he said, we're not going to spend gobs of money. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think he said gobs. We're not going to spend gobs of money chasing the streaming thing, this streaming beast that's out there, because everybody's getting into streaming. Everybody's throwing all of their eggs into that basket.
Right.
And Zaslav's looking at it and saying, maybe that's not a best strategy.
Well, it's exactly the opposite of what Jason Kilar did. Day and date pushing a full slate to the streaming service, and trying to bolster those numbers. That was back when they were trying to play a game with investors where it was the subscriber numbers that mattered and not the actual revenue,
right.
the average revenue per user. See, the only way that, and again, this is a conversation that I had been having for a long time everywhere I went, that I didn't feel like anybody cared I was talking about, which is fine. But it's got to be something. Any of these ventures have to be able to show that they will remain sustainable.
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is with what revenue your users are bringing in, and the gradual or slow removal of costs that are amortized over time. And so when you see that, those metrics and they just don't work, Wall Street came calling saying this doesn't work for us, and Jason Kilar didn't react to that, and because he'd already been, he already said everything's going to the streaming service day and date. It was bad planning, and trying to push a streaming service that really wasn't going to do them any favors. Look, when it comes to the streaming thing, and I know this is a tangent, but when it comes to streaming thing, I still think Sony has the best plan. Make stuff for other people and make a lot of money doing it. Yeah.
Well, and you've got not just the Batgirl thing that's going on. And, when you're talking about the changes in the strategy there, we've got Gordita Chronicles canceled for HBO Max, and it says here they're pulling back on live action kids and family programming.
Look at the word they used.
I know. That's not really a word. So then we've got this that came out, I guess it was last night. No, it was today. HBO Max quietly removed 6 Warner Brothers streaming exclusive movies. And usually they do an update. They say this is what's coming to the streaming platform. This is what's leaving at this date and all this. Yeah. These are just gone. They just disappeared. You have Moonshot. You have Superintelligence with Melissa McCarthy. No great loss there. Robert Zemeckis' remake of The Witches, which has been reviewed and said it's unbalanced. So no great loss there, I guess. An American Pickle starring Seth Rogen. Never heard of it. Doug Liman, Heist Pick, Lockdown, Charm City Kings. I haven't heard of half of these.
No.
But it's interesting that they just went away.
Well,
and
Jason, those films are not made for you.
No, I know. Yeah. I know. But it says here in this article, it says the removal of the Warner Brothers movies could be part of Warner Brothers Discovery's move to get streaming content payment obligations for underperforming titles off its books. Again, it goes back to we've got to find the money, we've got to find the savings.
$3 billion. And you know what, that you look at what was being done prior to Zaslav walking in the door. Right, and I didn't mean to step on what you were saying.
No, you're fine.
They were looking for those. They were looking for those opportunities to cut from before he even took over, and because that's kind of the drum he's been beating all along, and his due diligence tour, probably led him to a point where he's going, we are spending a lot of money on stuff nobody wants and or watches.
Yeah.
And that he hates that, whether or not he's a true believer in, the message or whatever, political stuff's been foisted upon us from these media companies.
Yeah.
But whether or not he's a true believer or not, the dude's first priority is making money because he's a businessman first and foremost.
I find it interesting that the two studios that are getting the most media coverage right now, and a lot of it is decidedly negative, are Warner Brothers Discovery and the Walt Disney Company, which are both now being run by people who are considered outsiders to a certain extent.
Right.
And they're focused on profit and business, and we're here to sell widgets and make money for our shareholders and make profit for our company so we can make other things. And Hollywood doesn't seem to really like that much.
No, they don't, and that's why the pushback is more effective over at Disney than it is at Warner, because they can't. It's not apples and oranges. In fact, obviously Andre and I and Tom and everybody we hang out with, right, Jason, we kind of have this same perspective, I think, in that Zaslav is there's no masters to serve. Because this is a brand new entity spun out of AT&T. He has the backing of the board, right? And the primary financial mastermind here is a billionaire named John Malone, who is, in a position where he wants to get rid of, bad things that don't work, like CNN Plus, right? That was like one of the first things that go bye-bye.
Yeah.
And they'd already spent how much money on that? $100 million, right? Reportedly.
And we're getting word that they're about to change up their anchor lineup.
They are, yeah. And you have a massive switch, really, possibly at CNN, getting back to actual hard news, and less commentary. And I think that that's probably a great move for them. But that all comes at the direction of John Malone. He's the 321st richest man on the planet. And he's, he came from the telecommunications side and got into the entertainment aspect of it. And, he's the money behind Discovery and now this merger, and in fact, the way that this entity came to be was strictly at his direction. When it spun out of AT&T, it spun out in a reverse Morris trust for that reason. Yeah. Because of tax reasoning, because of what he was directing them to do. So if you don't think that, Zaslav is John Malone's guy, he's ride or die with him, and you're going to see, the results of that. Because if you have that kind of support, that's something that Chapek, who I was trying to talk about earlier, he doesn't have over at Disney. He is constantly under fire. And he's not only under fire from, those on the outside and the industry as a whole, he's under fire from within because of all the people that were left behind that he has to deal with. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But
and you see him trying to chip away at that a little bit with firing Peter Rice, for example. He's got the entire board unanimously giving him a new contract. So there's pieces there that would indicate that he's able to now start doing some things that maybe he wasn't able to do before. And it's same kind of thing that what Zaslav's looking at, is we have to trim the fat, we have to cut the stuff that's not working, get rid of the things that people are not are not buying, they're not interested in this stuff, let's get rid of it. Yep. And it's now the question comes, what happens to the Flash? Because this whole DC extended universe thing is now just completely blown out of the water.
Mm-hmm. It is, and to steal from other people that I respect, the Flash film makes no sense now because there's going to be nothing tied to it. Really, outside of Michael Keaton, there is really no reason to preserve it. None.
Well, and you guys were talking about over on Midnight's Edge. He's not even in it very much, is he?
No, 5 scenes, and they're not for any great length of time.
And now,
that's for the moment. They could be cut.
Yeah.
That's the other problem they have, which is why they're, you're going to get, there are reasons that there's reshoots and stuff going into Aquaman 2, right? And it's not just Amber Heard. There are reasons they're spending money on that. They need Aquaman to succeed.
Yeah.
Because that's a character they want to roll forward in. They want the next Wonder Woman film to be good. So you notice how we haven't heard any news around that yet.
Right.
And you have The Flash, which is what were the two words that were used in the Post article? Irredeemable
and unspeakable.
What was it?
Unspeakable and irredeemable.
So maybe that would be a way to get rid of this Flash film. Look, somebody asked me this morning, and I answered honestly. Of three possibilities, what's the most likely? And I'll tell you, I think the most likely now, and this changed in the last 24 hours, the most likely thing for the Flash is to just cancel it and do the same exact thing you just did to Batgirl.
Yeah.
But if they don't do that, then drop it on streaming. Maybe, I don't know. Or expend a whole ton of money on reshoots and get rid of the problem with that.
Well,
hard
and
to say.
Bianca Zombie has a good point. They've got to get some return on Flash because of how much money they've spent. But
it wasn't their money.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, the only amount of their money that's on the books is the reshoots that they spent, which are reportedly somewhere around 28 to 30 million. So
the rest
we'll
of it could
see.
be in this tax write-off thing that they do. But if they do that, could with the financials thing, their report coming out tomorrow, would we need to expect them to make a decision on that today? Could we be looking at
the decision may already have been made?
Well, but an announcement maybe. Do we find out
don't know
today
that,
or tomorrow?
As long as everything on the books is the way it is, and again, it's all come down to an accounting conversation, right?
Yeah.
This is not in as much as I like to dive into the numbers of things. I'm not an accountant, so I don't really know I don't really care for the lingo around that kind of stuff. But I when I look at it, it could already be done. You just wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't know, and we may not know. Even the books may not, show that. But that decision may already be made.
Yeah.
Or they'll do. You can shelve it right now and just take your 30 million and put it in your pocket, and even after this point in time. But the Batgirl thing makes immediate financial sense as much as doing reshoots for Aquaman does. I mean, the reshoots for Aquaman are going to be the opportunity to make your money back, and
well, it's
that's
funny
what it comes down to.
It's funny you mention that because you've got the documents that have been unsealed from the trial, and that Umbrella guy did a video on this.
He did.
And this is in one of the pieces of documents. This is Exhibit 1, filed under seal. But you go in here, and it says here that she was released from her contract. This is her testimony under oath, I would assume, where she's saying that she was released from her contract for Aquaman 2. Now, it does also say that she was rehired.
Yes.
But the fact that she was released after sitting there saying, how many times did we hear people saying, she never got fired from the movie? The Warner Brothers people came in and said she never got fired from the movie, but this says otherwise.
Well,
and
again,
if they're doing reshoots,
this is where the play with language happens, right? What's the definition of the word is? What is that?
Right?
That's where. So it's PR speak.
Yeah.
So it's like if she didn't get fired, she was released from her contract. That doesn't mean she was fired.
Yeah. The same thing with Gina Carano. Gina Carano didn't get fired. We just didn't pick up her contract.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, to people like you and me, it's like it's a distinction without a difference. But when you talk to these legal nut jobs, which is again, that's how we got up with it. What is the definition of the word is? It's like
right. Or recession.
But anyway, that viewpoint bothers me. But anyway,
right.
she wasn't fired, right? She was just released from her contract. Look, I mean, and now this even makes more sense because we had heard in the background, and many people have talked about this, that it's not a secret that Momoa and Miss Heard had no chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that was one of the biggest things, and they knew that him and Amelia Clark had chemistry, right? Because they'd seen it.
So do you think that she's replaced Heard then? Do you think some of those reshoots are that?
I have a sense that part of the reshoots could include her being replaced in the film.
There's a strong suspicion out there.
Really, it's just a paycheck at that point, because they can write her off. They can write a check to her and say, this has been what you would have made on your, whatever we have in the back end part of your deal. And
well, and from this paperwork, it said that she didn't have any opportunity to renegotiate when they did hire her back. It was just, this is the offer. This is what we're going to do, or you can not come back. So it sounds like they were already, in that mode of getting ready to cashier her anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I based on the way Tug worked through that yesterday in his video, and obviously the documents that everybody can download now, by the way, there is reason to suspect that it was a take it or leave it deal, and that's part of the poverty cry that she's making now, right? Is I lost all this money. Well, yeah, you didn't get a raise because you embarrassed the entity that you work for.
Which,
and then
it kind of that's the head scratcher for me, because if they're willing to cut their losses with Amber Heard, why keep Ezra Miller?
Again, it comes down. Okay, so right now, the Flash movie, consider this. Technically, I think the Flash movie has been in production for nearly 5 years in some various form or another, including a rewrite either in 2018 or 2019. I can't remember to get the exact numbers right, but there was a rewrite in the middle of the making of this film, and there were multiple directors attached to it. There's something like possibly up to 40 writers that are going to be fighting for credits for this film, and you can't have that many writers.
Yeah.
Right. Trying to get some kind of a writing credit for the because they won't get it. And this has been a complete disaster from the very beginning. And it would be in their best interest to replace him. I mean, it really would. And what kind of mess it makes for them is probably the factor. And I think Cam 1138 is actually getting to some of that substance. It's not particularly that reason. It's because he's got a lot of information on a lot of people in the industry that they really would prefer not being, because this guy's a loose cannon. I mean, he's going to say whatever comes to mind when it comes to mind, as crazy as it may be. But if that casts any dirt on anybody, that's what they're kind of afraid of. Now, could you make him go away financially? Sure. Is it worth this film's gone way? I guess I should start where I left off because I went on a tangent. But this film has cost them way more than what's been reported as the budget. Let's just put it
easily.
Yeah, and considering the delays, the money that's had interest paid on this film, the fact that it's been in the can twice and has been pulled out of it, for stuff, The reshoots that they just did back in June were right before the latest bunch of shenanigans that were reported on the Post and other websites. So, they spent a bunch of money doing reshoots, and then a bunch of stuff breaks about bad behavior. And then now this thing is a poison well. So replacing him, maybe that $30 to $50 million is good money after bad, or maybe it's, going to save the film, have it break even, and at least get them to the next part of what they want to do with DC. And I mean, they need DC. They really, really do. It's their cash cow property that has yielded no cash.
And that is such a frustrating thing for me as a fan, because since Superman 78, there has everything that Warner Brothers has done for DC films has been hit and miss.
Yeah.
You know, Superman got it right, and everything after Superman 2, I mean, outside of the time travel stuff, you know, Superman 2 was a great movie, and I know Superman the time travel thing was moved to the first movie, but it was originally for the second one. If you look at the Donner cut, but past that, you don't have a long string of hits. You've got some that do well, some not so much. I mean, for every Batman, you've got a Green Lantern. And, you know, Superman Returns didn't do all that great. And, you know, you have diminishing returns in Batman and Robin, and Batman Forever, and those kind of things. So you're right. This is the one thing. If they could get this right and go for 10, 15 years like Marvel's been doing, then, you know, you'd have a juggernaut there. But it doesn't seem like they've got anybody that has the understanding of what it's going to take to do it.
And that gets to my point, right? That DC has been largely directionless.
Yeah,
and that's bad, right? And this is the problem with film or entertainment by committee, right? There's no singular vision. That's what you just described, so it feels rudderless and disconnected, disjointed. You can use a lot of adjectives, right? Descriptives there, but that's how it feels, and that's how it's presented to the audience, and that's why you end up with, you know, divisive stuff like Whedon's, you know, representation of Justice League, right? And then you have the Snyder cut.
Well, and then
I don't know.
Then you
Go
have
ahead.
then you have fans going back and forth and arguing over which universe they want, because, you know, you've got the Snyder cut fans.
Yep.
And there was the hit piece that said, well, some of those Snyder cut fans were bots. You know, there's a clear effort being made that we don't want the Snyder stuff, and yet you have Batfleck coming back for Aquaman 2.
But they don't want you to look too closely at those claims, right?
Yeah.
Right. You absolutely want Henry Cavill, right, as Superman.
Right.
Right. That's a no-brainer, right? And I guarantee you, Zasov's like, this is a no-brainer. Why isn't this being done? You know, resistance at the studio is, you know, by certain members that are either no longer there right away or are on the way out the door. Hamada, right?
Walter, yeah.
So, you know. But they don't want you to read into any of those claims when it comes to the bots and anything else like that, because they themselves employ bots across the board, you know, and so they don't want you to look at any of that. And this is absolutely true.
Well, see, Dave asked if this is a reason why multiverses aren't worth pursuing. I think multiverses present an opportunity to tell different kinds of stories, so you're not locked into one continuity.
It's a cheap what if.
Yeah, but at the same time, the shared universe, while I think there's value in a shared universe, you also start to accumulate baggage with the shared universe, because if you come in at the 10th movie, there's a risk that you're not going to be able to keep up. And this is some of the things that we're seeing over with Star Wars, because Star Wars now, all of its canon, so the comic books and the books and the video games, everything. So if you haven't read this book over here by Claudia Gray, you may not understand what's going on in this film over here, and you might not be able to pick up everything that was over here in this comic book. And that's a mistake, I think.
It is, and that's one of the problems that Disney had by decanonizing stuff and then adding to canon with things that didn't fall within the framework of the original films. You know, again, this is a very popular thing to do by people who are devoid of any kind of creativity. It's rewrite history so that it jives with what you want to talk about, not with what was created. And we can go into that all day long. But my problem with multiverses is that this has been my thoughts on this forever since I was a young person. Every single new iteration, if for whatever reason, ends up being a lesser to what the source was. Yeah. And that's why it's always recommended to stick with the source. I have not ever seen an iteration of something that was a part of a multiverse or whatever, what if, that was greater. No examples I think can anybody point me to of something that is greater than the original creation. I look, you don't have to go that far to point out that JJ's version of Star Trek is vastly inferior to, you know, the Roddenberry established canonized properties, right? So it had to create another timeline, you know, and do that and do the 25% different thing. You know, because they didn't want to be bound to, you know, the characters and characterizations that were, you know, brought to us by Roddenberry's creation.
And we're seeing that with Kurtzman Trek as well.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, from the films to the television shows and all that. But that, I mean, again, all of these bad ideas come out of the same ideology and in the cesspool of the JJ acolytes, because all of these people come out of his, you know, production tree.
Well, and then we have this, and this is kind of a sidebar thing, but it's along those same lines. This is IGN. Neil Patrick Harris saying that Ncuti Gatwa will be the first gay doctor over on Doctor Who. Now, to be fair, this is Neil Patrick Harris talking. This is not any kind of an official BBC, this is what we're going to do thing. So take this with as much salt as you think is appropriate. I haven't seen anything, and I might have missed it, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that that's actually going to be the case. But I don't think you would. No.
Yeah, because they're going to try to get eyeballs on this, just like they did the first season of, you know, the first female Doctor garbage.
Right.
So I have no reason to say
the first female Doctor. They were marketing that as, you know, it's about time. It's her story. They were making a big deal about her being, you know, the female Doctor and how much better it was going to be. And I haven't seen any promotional material or anything. Now it's early, but I haven't seen any interviews from. I haven't seen anything from Gatwa past the announcement at the beginning when they said he was going to play play the part. He's like, this is an exciting opportunity. This is great. We're going to take it really seriously and all that. I haven't seen anything from them to indicate that it's going to go that way.
Again, because of the character that Neil Patrick Harris is going to be playing, which is this villainous character.
Yeah.
I have no reason to doubt him. He's a pretty straight shooter when it comes to stuff. And if he's out there shooting his mouth off, he knows that, you know, that's something that's going to be paid attention to. He's a darling in a lot of circles, and I hate that. Look, you look really dour.
I always look dour. Ask my wife.
No,
I'm
but
always
you look like
dour.
I just tread over your grave.
No.
I
anticipate. Well, see, it's kind of one of those things where you go back and forth, because you've got this news here that First Kill is canceled at Netflix after one season.
Yep.
This is the lesbian vampire hunter team up here. You know, one's a vampire, one's a vampire hunter. They fall for each other. Now what are you going to do? It's kind of Romeo and Juliet with lesbian vampires.
Yeah, it is, actually.
And it's canceled.
Exactly,
and I think, well, that's a good sign. Nobody wants to see it, so they're going to get rid of it. And then you have this thing with the Doctor Who thing, and we're like, okay, is this pendulum actually going to swing back or not? You know, stop teasing us. Do something here.
The BBC, while the BBC is still somewhat invested in this, and of course, obviously, it's a new production company that is in ownership of Doctor Who. You know, you're still going to that's public broadcasting television money, which is the argument that, you know, I've been saying for a long time. Why is the public paying for something like this? You know, and the BBC, of course, that's been, you know, state television forever. Right. The French just voted to get rid of their TV license, which will cut several million dollars, that's going to cut billions of dollars out of there.
Well, didn't the British
pool for that television?
Isn't BBC 4 going private? Didn't I see that?
Who knows what the newly elected person or newly selected person will do with it, but it was slated to go public. Yeah, the auction was supposed to be held, but then they got rid of the previous problem in their eyes, which was Boris. So we'll have to see. Yeah. But I look at it and I'm like, you know, the state-sponsored television is a problem because whoever is controlling, the strings is going to like push their political view on everybody else, and that's not the way things go, and that's why a lot of people are turning away from these services like Netflix and stuff like that. But anyway, getting back to that, in some of these areas, because you asked the question, you are seeing the pendulums move back towards a business approach rather than a ideology approach. Will there still be progressive thoughts in stuff? Sure, there've always been there. But and this is an interesting video or a commentary that was made by Razorfist, if you get a chance to check it out, talking about how Hollywood was always fairly conservative up until the last 5 decades or so, 6 decades or so.
Yeah.
And they worked their very best to get rid of a lot of the people that were trying to subvert things, the subversives back then, as that they were called, right, at the time. But they managed to make their way back in. They managed to demonize the people that were paying attention. And things changed, culturally. So, but the problem is that they have to be profitable. And we were talking backstage, or maybe we weren't. Maybe we've talked about this before, but the pillars that are holding all of this stuff up are about to get smashed by an economic collapse in a foreign country, and they'll be coming soon here too. Because it's all these entities that control giant tons of our economy.
Yeah. Bianca says, assume everything post 2020 soft Bolshevik revolution is crap. Yeah. Is there any redemption for any of this? I mean, Zaslav looks like he's making moves to try to bring it back. Chapek looks like he's trying to bring it back.
Yeah.
Possible recovery, even though it's going to take a while, especially in a recession and possibly a depression.
Yeah, well, we're in a recession. I don't care what anybody says. We've been in a recession for a quarter.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
It doesn't matter. But
well, and there's that the Variety, the VIP report about people bailing on entertainment. They're cutting back on their streaming subscriptions. They're not going out to eat as much. I don't see it. I don't see a fast recovery.
No, but they need it to be faster than it's going to be, because again, if you look at those numbers that came out and that survey that you're referring to, right, it wasn't just that people were already cutting back, it's that they in the future were willing to cut back on multiple streaming services, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's
and
across
that
all the
terrify.
demographics. It's all age groups. It's not just one particular generation either.
Yeah, it's surprising, right? The only age group that seemed less affected by it were those that were currently retired. That was it. I mean, it's the 55 plus, which blows my mind, because I'm like, this entertainment's garbage. But most of the people that are watching that, for the most part, are watching the reruns of things that they enjoyed from years back. They're not watching the modernity crap.
Yeah.
So
wait, you mean at 55 I can retire? Can I retire at 55, Mrs. Boss?
You could have. I'm just saying, I hope I hope that holds true for me. But when you look at that, my friend, you look at the fact that there's numbers out there that show you can't sustain this. So even if you're being artificially propped up, right, by some financial entities, with spooky amounts of money, you have to make profit at some point, which is why the Zaslav thing should give you hope. But it doesn't mean you're going to get less stuff with, some kind of messaging in it, because that's unfortunately, kind of ingrained in certain elements of Hollywood now. And other entertainment entities around the globe. I mean, it's not just here. It started here, but it's elsewhere.
Well, and I can understand, I've always said that if you're going to do any kind of politics or message or anything like that, then it's got to be organic to the story, whatever that is, and it's what characters believe certain things or whatnot. But your creative talent, it's like Peter Jackson talking about when they were making the Lord of the Rings movies. It's like, we're not telling our story, we're telling Tolkien's story.
Right.
And that objectivity needs to be emphasized and rewarded. There needs to be, you look at Top Gun Maverick, for example. We're not doing any kind of
It's
message.
called-
It was,
Yeah,
money.
the most successful film of the year. There will be nothing else that will compete with it by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it has a chance going into another holiday weekend, right? Because we're headed into the second holiday weekend of the summertime, right? It's going to do bang up business. It's had ridiculous holds weekend to weekend. This is the true definition of a film with legs.
Yes.
We haven't had one in a long time, so we don't know that, and I've reset my sights on what is going to be a profitable film, and I'm going to have to adjust them again next year because inflation's driving those numbers up.
Yeah.
But if you're not making 2.8 times your budget, you haven't broken even. So if you're going out there and making a $200 million film, which seems to be the main set price for a lot of these Marvel monsters, you need to multiply that by nearly 3, multiply that by 2.8, and that's the number that you need to hit before you can even be considered profitable. Because after the production budget, marketing, you're split with the theaters, as far as the rentals and everything else go, those you have to consider. The exhibitors have the studios over barrel now because of because of what they did to them during the course of the global crisis, and the fact that they leaned so heavily into the streaming stuff. Yeah. That has come back to bite them. And I'm telling you right now, over at NATO, and this is the National Association of Theater Owners, folks, not the other NATO, Nathan Fithian is the guy that's in charge over there, and he's going to tell you, we're going to make you pay.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
Yeah. Well, and given the fact that we don't have, and we've talked about this in various different places, the fact that we don't have very many movies that are coming to theaters this year, and we've got Wakanda Forever that's coming in October?
I think that's going to be disappointing. I know a lot of people are like, it's going to go gangbusters. I'm like, nah, word of mouth on it's not good already, and we'll see where it ends up after people see it. But I want good entertainment. That's the problem. A lot of people always look at me and say, well, he's a naysayer. No, I want good stuff.
I do too.
And getting back to what you said, and I didn't mean to interrupt you on the Wakanda Forever, but you're right. There's a dearth of material.
Yeah. And it doesn't look, 2023 might be a little bit better, but it depends on the quality of the product. And if you're in the middle of a recession like we are, and people are deciding, well, I'm not going to spend any, I don't have any extra to spend on the frivolous stuff. Movie theaters are going to take a hit that way anyway, whether there's good movies in the theaters or not. People are going to sit there and decide, I can't afford to go out, and spend $25 to $50 to $70 on going out to the movies. I'll stay home.
And if you look, so look at this like an investor would. Is my return on my investment better by having a streaming service or by taking the family out and getting out for a little while in an economy that really has been quite punishing to my lifestyle, my way of life. And that's way of life issues are something that I think, based on a lot of the primary results from yesterday and previous weeks, you're seeing that people are valuing more their way of life than they are some of these ideologies that have been foisted upon them. And you will see that reflected in the next election cycle. And again, I'm not going to get into the politics of it all,
right? But
that unfortunately leads into a discussion of the money that surrounds all these studios and the projects that they support and these streaming services and the projects that they support, which is why, as you were pointing out, Netflix is cutting the First Kill and other programs, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't bring the eyeballs. Well, you can't cater to a fractional group of humans and expect to be profitable. You need to be casting the widest possible net, paint with the broadest possible brush. And when just a moment ago, you said, well, we need this good entertainment by these creatives. We don't have any creatives in Hollywood anymore. They've been driven out. There's no good writers that are employed by any of these entities now, because they all have to fall under specific definitions of what is an okay person to hire to do this job. Because we're looking
That's a good point.
We're looking at things that have no merit when it comes to writing. And instead, we're looking at something superficial when it comes to writing. That doesn't equate to good material.
Does that open up opportunities for more Daily Wire type operations? I mean, Daily Wire is getting involved in this stuff. You know, you've got Terror on the Prairie, and you've got a run, hide, fight, and various different things they're doing. But there've got to be other people that are not perceived as a political operation, because Daily Wire started with politics, and they're going to have that attached
Stigma.
to them, or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's got to be other people out there that are looking at this and seeing some kind of an opportunity here. There has to be.
See, one of the problems. Well, I agree with you, but one of the problems is, in order to get the megaphone to get to that point, you have to start from somewhere. The megaphones that are the loudest right now, unfortunately, are starting in the political realm. But you're not wrong. You're going to see the rise of an independent everything, whether it be television production, film production, or whatever. I mean, you know, you're watching the megacorps absorb some of these production houses like a feeding frenzy, because they still have some creatives within. But once they get a hold of them, they do the same thing they always do. They drive out the people that were responsible for their success, and then things change. I mean, you don't have to look farther than Skydance, which does have a lot of the message with them, but they've built themselves up across the board to become a super competitive studio, you know, and they're not tied to, you know, anybody directly.
Yeah.
You know, they were born out of some interesting places, but they went and acquired the talent. Like, you know, Lasseter gets shoved out by Disney for some bologna sausage. Well, he ends up over at Skydance. You know, it's that kind of thing. So I have a feeling, like I said, I mean, you don't have to look far. You mentioned the Daily Wire. You look at, you know, thoughtful directors like S. Craig Zahler, right? Dragged Across Concrete and Bone Tomahawk, and, you know, some of those films that he put together, S. Craig Zahler. And then you look at well, obviously in the comic book realm, right? We're all yelling about what's Ripa's doing with one comic book.
Yeah, $3.3 million right now. Have you? So now to the naysayers out there, because Rich Johnston over at Bleeding Cool finally had to cover this because he was obligated, but he did it in such a way to sit there and cast shade.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, threw shade on Eric, but Eric's got the books. I mean, they're in the warehouse along with everything else. He's getting ready to start shipping.
Yeah.
And
yeah, in
this
fact,
thing,
people are going to get this earlier than they were promised. That's the amazing thing about it, right? And
I see this as an example, because you look at this, you look at Cyberfrog, you look at the stuff that
EBS,
Billy
everybody in
Tutu's
that
doing.
sphere,
You know, Brian Polito's doing it. They're making money hand over fist. I mean, now Eric's the top dog right now, but this is comic books.
in single book earnings, because EBS
yeah.
overall I think is like 5 or 6 million.
Yeah, and
total.
I think Polito is somewhere up around 6 or 7 total. But
Yeah,
Polito's
yeah,
been doing
I
it
think
for
they're
like
both
12
quite
years.
Well, yeah, doing pretty well.
But this goes to show that other people, if I sit there and I say, okay, I've got this really great idea, I've got this really great creative team, we're going to make a movie, we're going to go crowdfund it, and it's going to be a non-woke, no message, or just straight up entertainment thing. Or if we decide to crowdfund a magazine, you know, like Starlog, or if we're deciding that we're going to go create an audio drama or whatever, there are opportunities here, and the crowdfunding, you know, lets you do some of that outside of the Hollywood bubble, and I think more people are going to start taking advantage of that as they realize, hey, I can do this, and I don't have any restrictions.
So this is interesting, because I've looked at this from the other side of the equation. You need to get rid of the middlemen in the production cycle, like the finance guys. You have to get rid of them, because they are literally the people that can make a decision on whether or not you get to make what you want to make.
Right.
So you're seeing a lot of people looking at the metaverse as an opportunity to do that. And I think that that's an interesting perspective in removing the middleman. You're looking at people look at NFTs, you know, as part of their production cycle. You're seeing a lot of different kinds of thinking, and, you know, think what you want to about NFTs, and I don't think highly of them at the moment, but you know, they could be utilized as a funding mechanism to make a film. In fact, there has been a case where they've made a film based on NFTs. I do think that that those are the things we need to get rid of, or we need to find or found a financial middleman that actually greenlights projects with no message or none of the junk that goes into it,
Yeah.
and that's that is what it is. But of course, I'm working on my own project. I think everybody kind of is. I'm working on a horror sci-fi film that I hope to actually make one day. So but there are a lot of people that have projects that they're working on, and I have a lot of people reaching out to me like, hey, I'm working on this, what do you think?
Yeah.
So I think there's a movement afoot. Let me just put it that way.
I think so, and we've been talking about it here. I mentioned the Starlog type of magazine. We've been talking about doing something like that for years. And of course, I've got my book that I'm looking at expanding and doing a bigger version of that. But it's some of that's finding the time, but it's also generating the interest. It's finding the audience, and there's a big difference between having a YouTube channel with 2 million subscribers versus 2,100 subscribers. So it's a slow burn. It's a tough slog, and one of these days, who knows?
Yeah, well, I'm a little over 4K now, on my way to 5, and it's a slow trudge, but that's okay. Eventually it becomes a much faster paced trudge.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the algorithm logarithmically works, unfortunately. Yeah, there I am. Hey, look, it's
there
me.
It is. And
it's me.
And it's one of those things. That's one of the reasons why we built the TV.2 channel, to do all of the replays, as opposed to having the live and replay on this channel, because the YouTube algorithm don't like it. And of course, we're on Odyssey, same as you are.
Yeah.
So I think we're at 191 subscribers on Odyssey. It's dropping the bucket.
I think I need to do. You guys do a fine job, but I need to do a better job of promoting my Odyssey presence and my Rumble presence, and eventually I'll get out to the other couple of video services out there. I need to do better at that. I think we all do. We need to promote all of the different little stickers you have on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Where we are at. I just managing all that is a hot mess.
Yeah, it's a lot of cut and paste, a lot of copy and paste. It's like I'll put it all together in one, and I'll copy it and I'll paste it everywhere else, and it's every now and again I'll find somebody like you who's on some of the other alt tech, like Parler or MeWe or Minds or anything like that. Oh, he's got an account here, I can tag him. And it's that you have to get people out of the habit of only being at Twitter.
Yeah. Oh no. And that's the thing, is I love Getter. Getter's a great place to be. Parler I kind of set aside for a while. I joined there because it looked like that was going to be the place where a free conversation could be had. And then of course, Amazon colluded with others to get them shut down for a while.
Yeah.
Minds is a great place. Yeah. And Bianca Zombie, good work over there. That's hard to do on Odyssey.
Yeah. And we've got, we were one of the first, I don't want to say the first, but we were an early adopter of the live stream function over on Odyssey. Now with Rumble, you have to pay for a higher tier in order to be able to do it. Odyssey, we can just do it, and we were one of the first ones to do it. And I've lost track of how many emails we've gone back and forth. It's like, hey, what happened here? What this thing did this? What's going on? And so
I did that for a little while, right? Because I was also an early adopter. I reached out to their support team. They immediately gave me whatever. They needed a qualifying thing, like they used whatever stacks of tokens that you had as your qualifying thing to get in the door there to live stream. And I understand that, because it cost them quite a bit of money to host these RMTP servers, right? That allow us to do the injection on their side of things. And so when I reached out to them and got it right away, I had very little response when I was dual streaming live, or at the time I think I was streaming also to Twitch. So I was going out to 3 platforms at the same time. I don't do that anymore, because when you reach affiliate on Twitch, you can't share content live. You have to
for 24 hours
wait.
Exclusive.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
Yeah.
But so I'm that relegated me to just doing gaming on Twitch through, what I wanted to do was just a gaming channel on Twitch to begin with. But anyway, regardless, I think we have to support all the platforms. I think we have to. Tout our presence on them all, and I think we need to push them, because I think, much like the Quartering talks about and all these other folks that are in the same space we are, it's that alt tech that's going to make the difference, and it's going to keep everybody else honest. Because right now there's no pressure for any of the entities that we're on to stay honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are you all? What all the different platforms are you on right now?
Well,
you
obviously
do need a little
Minds,
graphic with all of the icons there. Like,
yeah,
you gotta do
I'm Getter, Minds, Twitter. I'm getting ready to do a Megagram book face thing, but I'm not going to do Facebook, so I can't do it. Too toxic, too privacy. There are too many issues at Facebook that are terrifying if you know anything about internet security.
Yeah.
I have a Twitch that I haven't done anything with in a long time. I'm going to get back to doing some gaming over there. Obviously, YouTube and Odyssey, Rumble. And I'm going to get to BitChute, and what's the other one? There's another one out there like BitChute.
Was it D-Live?
Subscribestar.
Subscribestar. Well, Subscribestar is like Patreon.
Yeah. And D-Live kind of scares me for some reason. I think it's because of the content on it. Yeah. But and then I have a Patreon I've never launched.
We had one for a little bit, and then all of the political stuff happened. I was like, nope, just shut it down. We didn't have that many subscribers anyway, and we've got a Subscribestar, and I tell people about it, but we don't have anybody signed up for it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll do this. We'll do this for free for now. So.
Yeah, and it's. Just right now, I think the more reach that you have on the primary platform, I'm going to say it, the better off you are, unfortunately. And until, like I said, until they have real actual competition, which is what we're trying to do by recommending people visit these other services, then they can suppress smaller content in preference to mainstream content that gets few reviews.
Maybe we should do some Odyssey only streams, some Odyssey exclusive streams.
It sounds reasonable to me.
We have done RJ over at Critical Blast. He and I have done some things where we'll simulcast to both our channels and his
on Odyssey.
So it might be we've done it. He's only got a YouTube channel. He doesn't have an Odyssey channel. So we do. It's called Blast from the Bunker. It's a special thing where we'll co-interview somebody, and I'll send it out to all three of ours. Facebook, YouTube, and Odyssey, and send it to his YouTube. So it's going to it's like a network. It's like a TV network. It's
That's
going
really
to
cool.
stations.
I like that. Yeah.
So I'd like to do some more of that. I think that would be good too. For building awareness and cross pollination and networking and that kind of thing. So.
I like that idea. I would be terrified of running afoul of the TOS with the tube because of reused content.
Yeah. Does it count?
I'm
count
risk
as
averse
reuse?
when it comes to like my platform.
Well,
So.
would it count as reused content if you're on the stream and we're going to your channel, and I'm on the stream and we're going to my channel? Because that doesn't seem like it would be a reuse if it's going to the same place simultaneously.
I'm not sure what their argument would be. I'd have to reread that part of the terms of service.
Something to look at.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sir, we've come to the end of our hour. I do appreciate you being here, and of course, this gives me an opportunity to pop up our list.
Oh wow! Look at that.
That's everything where you can find us. So yeah, everybody. I think everybody needs something like this, because if you're watching the video, you can pause it, you can frame grab it, you can go find us on all of these channels.
Wow.
But it's one of those things.
I didn't get to ask you.
Yes.
Because you asked me a lot of questions. You think they're going to leave the Flash in place?
No. I'm like you. 24 hours ago, I would have said no. But now, I think anything is possible. I think Zaslav is looking at the bottom line and thinking, not just the expense. Yeah, AT&T spent all this money on this movie, but now we're the ones who are going to have to do damage control on the PR. And I don't know that Zaslav's going to want to do that. I think he'll take the however many millions hit and do the tax write-off, and they probably already have.
Yeah.
And maybe during the earnings report tomorrow, they say the Flash is done.
I'll have to look at the books, right?
Yeah.
That's the next step, right? Is to dive in.
Crazy times. Crazy times.
Hey, look at their filing, actually.
Yeah. Ugh. All right, sir. Well, we will definitely do this again. What have you got coming up on your channels here in the next few days?
Boy, I dropped a video today on how Mr. JD was winning once again. In spite of AH's best efforts. As you can see there, those are the uploads from recently. But I did a very unpopular with YouTube story, but popular with the people who watched it on VisaTube, which you and I talked about, or almost talked about on the Sunday show.
Yes.
But
yeah.
No, I've got a lot coming up. Obviously every day, every weekday, I have the 6-minute daily, which is basically the blast of pop culture news, entertainment news, and just general news. More than headlines, because I give you my analysis, editorial, and sometimes read from the articles. But that's a fun program, weekdays. And then, of course, I give people videos every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then, obviously, 9 streaming shows in total every week on the channel. So it's a lot.
9 shows. Wow. You're doing more than I am now.
Yeah, I'm also not sleeping. So I gave up sleep completely.
All right.
I had to go find a vampire.
Yeah, but not a lesbian vampire.
I don't know. You would have thought that show was a home run. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Times they are changing. All right. Culture Casino, thank you very much, sir, for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here as well. We do appreciate you being here. And that's going to do it for us. Remember, folks, the government is your enemy, and there are 4 lights.
Thanks for watching Sci-Fi for Me TV. Copyright 2022 by Flaming Dog Media, LLC. All rights reserved. No portion of this program may be retransmitted without the express written consent of Flaming Dog Media. You're watching Sci-Fi for Me TV, delivering the multiverse since 2009.